¿Estamos? Perfecto. Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome for our second day of the Umweltkonferenz from the Environment Conference. Unfortunately, we will have to move the schedule a little bit, so we will start with our presentation on state-of-the-art research at the Institute of Engineering Sciences, O'Higgins University. It's a talk given by Professor Rodrigo Verschae. And well, I will just first give a short introduction for him. So Dr. Rodrigo is a highly accomplished electrical engineer with a very diverse background and extensive international experience. He completed his doctoral degree in electrical engineering in 2010. And also, he holds an engineering degree from Universidad de Chile from 2002. He also holds a master's that he did in France in applied mathematics. Through his career, he has worked in several countries. And from those countries, those include Japan and Germany, where he has been assistant professor, for example, from the Fraunhofer Institute in Berlin, and from the Graduate School of Informatics in Kyoto. Well, not to make this introduction very long, I will just give the scenario to Dr. Rodrigo.
I cannot see well with the reflection, so I will stand here. Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And we are very happy to be here from O'Higgins University. So we are not part of the network, but we are very happy to join this conference. I will give and if there is time left at the end, I will speak a little bit more about some things we are doing related to teaching and education and outreach. So one clarification about the introduction. So I was not professor at Fraunhofer, no, just researcher for every time. So first, my university, we are a new university, a regional national university in Chile. It was created recently by law 2015. We opened 2017, so we are very new. It's somehow similar to what is happening here, but we started just 6 years ago. Chile didn't have national universities in 2 regions. So one is O'Higgins, the other one is Aysén in the south part of Chile. So the university, the President Bachelet decided to start these 2 new universities. We are located in Chile and in the central part, just south of Santiago, about 100 kilometers south of Santiago. So we have very good connection also for international flights and networking. And you can see here, Santiago, if you have been to Chile, we are just here. So this here in Rancagua is the main campus of the university. The region is very interesting. Actually, it's very important in economical terms. So it was very strange. There was no national university, and actually there was no university. There were small campuses of other universities. We didn't have even private university in O'Higgins. We had in all other regions in Chile. We have mining. One of the largest copper mining in the world is located in O'Higgins. We have important wine production, fruit production, one of the largest in Chile and in the world. And we have a very diverse area. Okay, so we have many interesting problems and challenges in the region. The university currently has 2 campuses, one in Rancagua and one in San Fernando. And we are currently designing a 3rd campus in Rengo. This red line is the main highway going from south of Chile to Canada. Yeah, it's a Pan-American highway. So we are very well connected also with other regions in Chile. We are currently designing a new campus just for engineering. Part of the region just for engineering, and it's very nice campus in the scale of the campuses you have here too. And the university has already about 100 professors. We have, from March, we will have over 6,000 students, about 25 undergraduate programs. We will have in March 4 graduate programs. And we have already around 40,000 square meters built in the two campuses. And the projection is to have, in about 5 years from now, basically double the number of professors. This, I think, will be larger the number of students, maybe around 10,000. And also continue growing in undergraduate and postgraduate programs. So the university is very interesting in one way that is not common. So we don't have faculties, we have schools and institutes. So institutes are for research, and schools are for undergraduate teaching, and they are separately from the administrative point of view. So me and Daniel, we are part of the Institute of Engineering Sciences, and we focus on research, but we keep 30% of our time for teaching in a school. And this is, from the managing point of view, independent unit. So for example, I'm director of Institute for Engineering Sciences, and I don't care much from the point of view of management about teaching. Yeah, that is done by someone else. Of course, we collaborate and talk a lot, but there are two separate units. We have 5 undergraduate schools: engineering, education, health, social sciences, and agriculture. And we have 5 also for research, basically the same names: engineering science, education science, health science, and so on. All professors are hired in a very competitive process with doctor degrees around the world, in Chile and around the world, and I think it has been very, very successful. So, for example, for the undergraduate and graduate programs right into engineering, we have currently 6 engineers. We have computer engineer, electrical engineer, geological engineering, industrial engineering, mechanical engineering, and mathematical modeling for engineering. It's kind of data science. And we have already 1 master program. It's basically engineering with 4 different sub areas that you can specialize. Again, operation research, modeling, AI, electrical engineering, and physics. And from March, we will have 3 new postgraduate programs: one in biotechnology, one in earth sciences and environmental sciences, and 1 PhD on bioengineering. So these 3 are completely interdisciplinary programs, and we have more than 1 institute related to them. So the master program are related to the institutes that do research, not to the school that work with the undergraduate students. So now going to the Institute for Engineering Sciences more in detail. We do basic research and applied research. we try to do work that is interdisciplinary. We don't separate ourselves in departments. We are all together in one space, let's say. And we also try to work on regional problems, not only abstract research. We are already in the Institute of Engineering Sciences about 50 researchers, and with PhD doing research in engineering. And I think this number maybe doesn't say much, but before the university, there were less than 5 researchers with PhD in the region. And now just in engineering, we have over 50. So it's a big change. It's very important. And if you look at the pictures, so most of them are very young. I'm the older one in engineering, so we have a very good projection in terms of the age of the researchers and faculty. We have currently 7 main areas of research. We have maths and applications, geosciences, AI and robotics, energy and control, physics, mechanical materials, biotechnology and bioinformatics, and operation research. Of course, we have sub-application to different fields. So all of them can work with different fields, and we collaborate a lot. So we have projects related to health, mining, agriculture, water, and energy. We have already 6 laboratories. These laboratories are more, let's say, physical spaces with machines. That's not the concept here of the laboratory. We have the digital factory that Daniel will present tomorrow, bioengineering laboratory, robotic and intelligent system laboratory, sedimentology, physics and medical physics. We have a good high-performance computing center. We are building now two more laboratories on material sciences and power electronics. We have been also very competitive in external projects. We have in engineering over 60 projects, basic research, transfers, and also international networks, so I will not go into it. The individual starter research program in Chile, and we have equivalent to some other universities just from engineering side. So we have been very good in these numbers, and we expect to grow in larger projects as the researchers grow in their careers. So now I will briefly mention about some projects we have that are more applied research with the member of the region, of IN region. So we have projects related to, I will talk about this later, cherry production. We have project related to photovoltaic panels in agriculture. I think this year is related to salt production, traditional salt production, and renewable energies. So I will skip this because it's maybe too much, and there will be no time for later. But very briefly, we have growing plants. So we are doing research and transfer on that. This is a project related to understanding the incentives for tourism from the data science point of view. We have a bio-mining lab. As I mentioned, in our region, we have very large mining. Technologies point of view, and also related to what to do with the material that is left there, how to improve it also using biotechnology, and how to get also from there bacteria that can be used, for example, to improve some other processes in agriculture. That lab also worked very strongly during COVID pandemics and was used for PCR and other techniques. So it was very important for the region. So actually, it was the largest in the region. We'll talk a bit more about this project. Is also funded from the regional government. And here we are working on cherry production and how to improve the processes, basically to minimize risk. So when we started to design this project for the application, we identified that the main issue is that they could not estimate well how much cherries will be produced and exported. So it's very difficult to know after 6 months of production, winter and everything in spring, to know how much in the volume of production was happening. So the reason for this has to do with basically the weather conditions during winter and what the agriculture the farmers are doing in the field during that time. So we wanted to understand well that and give tools to improve that production and not to waste material, and also not to lose part of the production, because if you produce 30% more than you expect, then you don't have hands to pick up the fruit, you don't have the trucks to transport it, you have to process it, you have to export it. Goals. The first one is to understand what has been done in the region traditionally, so traditional techniques for this by agriculture, to analyze the historical production and environmental data and climate data. Then we wanted to install, and we are working on installing LoRaWAN networks with sensors in the field to understand what is actually happening with temperature, humidity, and other sensors in the field, using cameras to estimate the amount of production. And problems. So now for fruit production, we are okay. So just to wake up. So one thing we wanted to do, and we use a lot of time, is to count the number of fruits. So we analyze the state of the art in object detection. So if you know a little bit about image processing and object detection, you will find here some of the system we use. I will not go into detail because it's too specific. One problem that we have when we do this kind of analysis we finally found some good ones, and we are able to detect fruits that are in the different stages of maturity. So at least we have 3. So you can see here green, unripe, and ripe. And then we can get this kind of detection result that's actually a very good one. I will not go into detail of the methods. If you want to know, we can discuss about this later. And we get very good results. So you see here, basically no cherry is lost. So this is for detecting fruits in one picture, but we want to know the volume or the number of fruits in the whole field. So we are using basically a Kalman filter for this. Here you can see the detections and the tracking. It's a bit confusing, but this video is showing the detections of ripe and mature fruits, and this one is showing the tracked fruits over time. So this should start moving. So this is one student walking on the field taking this video, and the idea is to track and count the fruits as we see it in the video. It's a bit small, maybe you cannot see so clearly, but what is important here is that these boxes showing the detection is kind of stable. So it doesn't disappear and appear too many times. And from this, what we can do is count how many fruits we are seeing over time. So basically there are some peaks, and these peaks are correlated with the main tree appearing in front of the camera. We are seeing many things over time. Yeah. Here is the number of fruits being counted. This is time. These should be the ones that are entering, the new ones that are entering the image. Yes, because we want to count how many we are seeing over time. Yeah. And then, let me skip. What we want to do, this is ongoing process. We want to have estimation of the density, and when we move through the field, to know how many we are seeing, and using GPS to localize this information. We haven't done that yet, but this is actually from different walks from the student in the field. We can estimate how many fruits we have in different places. This is important for counting, but can also be used to improve production maybe 1 year after. So we can understand the difference of what is happening in different parts of the field. So there are some parts with few fruits, other with more fruits. So from this year, we will get this kind of platform, and then we can automatize this also and standardize how to do this, have a protocol for doing this. So this is ongoing process, but we have already this, I think, interesting results. We are also working with drones. This is just one example of what we are doing, but here we are trying to build our own tools, because this is already available in many software. We wanted to do it ourselves to learn about it and be able to build more things on top of that. So here we want to do two things from the drone images. First is to geolocalize the trees. So here you can see the detection of the trees, and then from that information to know where are the, aisles, and then also start working on the navigation of the robots, to have automatic navigation of the robot or even drones. And also on top of that, we have sensors in the field, and we want to be able to see the information of the sensors, geolocalize also with the trees. So build different layers of information using this kind of data. We have also some work with some drones. We have two drones. We have a multispectral and one large drone with a LiDAR. And we are working with them. I didn't include much information on what we are doing here, because there is enough time for the presentation. So, but if you are interested, we can talk about it later. Also, we have this hyperspectral camera. So we are trying to understand, and here we want to work with the fruits, but also with the flowers. That is very important. Here are some examples of the first images we took with this hyperspectral camera. And here what we are doing, we are building this device for moving the camera and capturing. So we decided not to buy it. So we got only the camera, and we are building this mounting system because we wanted to bring it to the field and capture in the field and analyze what is happening with the flowers and the fruit and the leaves in the field. Working with 5 different orchards, and across the region, different weathers, agricultural weathers. You can see here, this is the sprout. Then we have later to know how many hours of cold you had in the winter, because that triggers how the maturity will happen in the different branches of the tree. So for that, we installed this kind of sensors in a few trees in these fields, and we have this data over winter, well, of course, over summer too. So we have humidity, temperature, and also some soil sensors. So what we are doing from that is we have in each field a few sensors, maybe 4 sensors. Climate station monitoring for the whole field or for a wide area. We want to know more specifically what is happening in each part of the field with a few sensors. So we have these sensors located in a few places, maybe here 4 places. And from that data, we want to estimate actually the cold hours across the field, and we have the temperature profiles for each sensor. So for this, we are using Gaussian processes. It's a technique for estimation. And together with the sensor, we want to know actually how many sensors we need. Actually, if we need sensors, maybe we don't need it. Maybe the climate station is enough. So we are working on that now. So to understand better what is happening in the field, the need to put sensors for the different more local variation. Counting that I showed you before, we can also correlate the counting of fruits with the cold hours in winter. I have. Okay. So now I will briefly mention about my research on other topics that are also maybe interesting for you. So this was already mentioned, but I have been very lucky. I have worked abroad in many places. So, and I was sometime here in Germany, in Berlin, already almost 20 years ago. I did my master in France, and then I spent almost 7 years in Japan. And currently, I am director of engineering sciences, as I mentioned. I'm working in this project of the cherries that is very interesting. I'm also director of a project from the Ministry of Science for outreach and science dissemination. There is one per region. So I didn't prepare a little bit about that. In terms of research topics, I have been working basically on 3 main areas: machine learning, computer vision, and coordination systems. So when you have many agents, how to coordinate them. And with applications in energy, what I did basically in Japan. And currently in smart agriculture, and I also want to start working on mining. I have worked in detection for a long time. So this is my undergraduate, my PhD, and also I did some things here in Germany. I can tell you a bit more later if you are interested, because I developed the face detection system, this one, that was used by the Bundesdruckerei for the passport production system. So that was 20 years ago. So, and then I work on coordination, so how to use the resources where you have many agents that want to use and store energy, how to do it efficiently with communication between the agents. So, and I have worked also on, this is models for understanding how clouds are moving and how that relates to solar production locally, with a camera looking to the sky dome, and analyzing the movement of the clouds very, very quickly. Also, I did a little bit about tracking, in this case, detection and tracking, but with fish. So here the difficulty is that the light is reflecting because of the pool. Yeah. And also a little bit on robotics. So currently, I'm working with a new camera. I don't know if you know it. It's called the event-based camera. And this camera measures difference at the pixel level and is asynchronous. So it can see things that happen very quickly, and even if it's dark. So here you see at night and at day someone blinking, and you can see the person blinking with this kind of camera directly from the data from the camera. So it can see things that happen very quickly, and also with low contrast or high contrast. So this is, I will not go into detail, but I'm working with this kind of camera that is very useful for robotics, and application is in the field, not only inside, indoor. This has many applications. We are working on, this is not my work, this is from other people, but we are working on optical flow. We are working on some positional SLAM. And we are working on some recognition problems. You can see here, this is a good example of what this camera can see. This is the events captured by the camera. This is what you get if you use a phone camera. And this is what you can reconstruct if you use event cameras. And you can see there is no saturation. Yeah? And going from dark to bright, you can see very well what is happening. So I'm working on various, let's say, neural networks for analyzing the data and how to represent it, because it's very different from standard cameras. Well, this is not my work, but this is a colleague that recently joined our lab, and he is working on deformable soft robotics. We are also working on how to use large volumes of data. I will go very quickly here, but basically this is a postdoc working with us in the lab, and what we want to do is we have large amounts of data, but only a small part of it is annotated. How we use the unannotated part. So this is important in health applications and also in agriculture applications. So we have many data from the field. We have the expert annotating a small part, how we use the part that is not annotated. So that is the kind of technique we are using with unlabeled data, labeled data, and how to use it efficiently. And finally, something a little bit about outreach. We try to engage with the community. One of the things we are starting to implement is this Ducky Town project. I don't know if you know it. It's from MIT that simulates a small town with autonomous vehicles, and these are the inhabitants of the town, these ducks. So we are working with this both for our students, for projects, and also for showing these technologies to the general public. And finally, just to mention this is from our this program I mentioned. I'm in charge, so we have, it's called Par Explora. We have one per region in Chile, and this program is for the science dissemination to the schools and to general public, and we have actually many activities I didn't have time to translate all, but each one of these is one activity we do in the region. So we did a podcast, and we were on the radio talking about artificial intelligence and what are the impacts. We have this science talk in a bar, so drinking beer and talking about science. But also we have some 5 days, for example, working with a group of professors, teachers at schools, and giving them tools to better teach science. We have a regional congress where we have about 20 group of students from high school presenting their research to the community. We have Science Day, or we have a big festival in Chile and also in each region, so we organize it, and we have many other activities that if you are interested, I can tell you more personally. Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Especially in cherries, plums, and so forth. Of course, you will get an indirect answer because you take the weather station in between, and then the pollinators don't pollinate, and that means a big decline in terms of production. Does this go into your research and how you may be able to better protect an area concerning frost and so forth and make sure the pollination can take place? So are you going that far in your research or in your...
No, in our case, a bit different, the problem. So we have the problem of knowing how much coal was happening for that tree or that area. And the number of coal hours is an important parameter for triggering the hormone that produces the cherries. But what is more hard is what the human is doing in the field. For example, they drop some of the sprouts or some of the fruits during this process to have larger cherries, for example. So we are starting with volume. After that, we want to go to quality, of course, and to better predict. So give some engineering tools to the agriculture process. So measure what is happening and when we should do and what. Yeah.
Very impressive. So cool stuff you're doing. I have a question concerning the event-based camera. It seems it's a differential cam, right? So when you're in motion, you see something.
Yes.
How did you do the reconstruction when you drove along the street, which was partly overexposed? Was it done really
So
by an algorithm, or is it kind of convolutional neural networks you're using?
So this is not my work, but there are, let's say, maybe three ways of doing this, and it's already published by other groups. So this camera is measuring the difference, and for each pixel independently of the other pixels asynchronously, and this can be done with let's say analytical techniques and with neural networks. Yeah. This example is with the CNN, with a neural network.
I assume you're fusing somehow the event-based camera output and a kind of RGB camera, right?
No, this is only using events.
This is the reconstruction only from the event?
Yes.
Without an additional RGB?
Yes.
How does that work?
So these events measure, so it's maybe too much detail, but measure when the pixel changes, increases or decreases on a given threshold. But what is important is that you get the exact time when that happens at the microsecond level. So it's very fast and a lot of very high temporal resolution, and basically integrating that information. And when the change happens, you can reconstruct.
Yeah, but you see on the left side, right, in this movie, you see that
This one. These two.
The instruction in the background at the very kind of there is more behind it, right? You don't just use the event camera. There must be something in between. So kind of CNN or so to reconstruct.
So you can build it with CNNs and you can build it also with analytical methods. So
It's cumulative also, because you see at the beginning you do have we have three small stacks or whatever they are. It's cumulative, it probably just keeps it at the very
So it's losing them here, right? There is something. Here you are losing the information on the left side, but on the right, in the right image, in the middle image, you still see it.
yeah, but also one thing is important is that here we are, when we're visualizing this, you have to project the events in frames. So actually there is more information than what we see here. Yeah. Because we have, at microsecond level, we have events, we project them in frames, and then we make this video. But actually, there are more events actually here. So, yeah.
Is this particular useful in SLAM?
It's very useful in, and so, so it's very useful. So, yes, so let's say the robotic community is very strong in using event cameras and SLAM and reconstruction and this kind of optical flow has been used and analyzed extensively. Yeah.
So like an RGB camera, small.
Yes, we are very small, light. You can put it in drones and yeah. And there are now maybe 5 producers, including Sony, Samsung, or large producers. And there is one producer that is making the camera and the same sensor captures frames and events both. So, yeah.
area for central Chile doesn't have normally that many water problems. So I was thinking about the LoRa LAN network and the sensors that you're putting in the field.
Mhm.
You're mainly oriented towards relative humidity and temperature.
Yes, yes.
But not to watering the soil.
So in cherry production, the key variable is the temperature, because that triggers how many fruit and how the fruit will develop. So we have soil, humidity, and temperature sensors. But in this problem, temperature is the most important one. And we have some colleagues that didn't include here working on irrigation problems. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm not working on that. So, but we have a group working on irrigation and water quality, also that kind of thing. Yeah.
Perfect. Then thank you very much, Dr. Rodrigo. And was a definitely very interesting topic and say multidisciplinary. For our next talk, yeah, it's weird to data science at it's a data science researcher at Han University of Applied Sciences. She has a background in artificial intelligence and linguistics, and that experience in machine learning, recommender systems, for example, at the TNO and the FD Media Grouping. She's a member of the Data and Knowledge Engineering Research Group, and she is currently working in data science related topics and also in the masters, developing the material of the masters applied data science. Yes. And so, you know how it goes, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
You're currently working together with the framework of another DAD program, which is called EduNet, towards the development of a master at the HAN. We are having already an existing master, and we are trying to learn about how to produce teaching materials together, OERs together, how to improve didactics of teaching, and yeah, we are very happy to learn also from our colleagues that do a lot of project-oriented learning, and so I think it's a very fruitful collaboration.
Thank you.
To fill the talk.
So who's going to start, Clein?
I think I'm going to start.
Oh yeah.
Not again. Okay.
So since maybe not everybody knows what TNO and FD Media Group is, TNO is like the Fraunhofer Institute of the Netherlands. So it's a very broad research institute where I did where I worked in the data science group, mostly on text mining related topics. And FD Media Group is actually a financial newspaper in the Netherlands where I did a very cool project on automated summarization of news articles. Well, yeah. Well, it was kind of the start with all the so I think I did that in 2018, and then we just had like this attention-based network for summarization, and yeah, we explored that a little bit, and then things took off. So it was hard to keep up as well with all the Googles and open AIs. But yeah, those techniques.
All right, so behind this group, so we two are presenting, but actually behind this group there's actually a lot more people. We have, for example, Andreas, Kofer, but we also have Harley that was supporting us the whole time. We also have, for example, Asam and Jan that were there the whole time. We have Rob supporting us. We have Waltraud and Magdalena supporting us. So actually the team that is behind it. And from HAN, we have also a whole, like a big group of professors and researchers that are also supporting in order to make this project a reality. So the idea of the whole project, or the general program, started with the DAD HABE International Module B. And the idea was to have or to implement like a partner cooperation with international partners. So between those goals were, for example, to prepare the students to be correctly prepared to the challenges of the global market, and to basically be able to put topics that were anchor, for example, sustainability, for example, to bring interdisciplinarity across different levels and different groups. So students, professors, the partners outside, researchers, the administrative staff, and to involve basically all of them together. So the response, or our response to that was the EduNet project. So it is an international university, or the idea is a cooperation of international universities where we want to have exchange of teachers, staffs, researchers, students, and basically to help and to strengthen the development of the master programs from HAN and from HSRW. So between the ideas of all this model was also the joint development of open educational resources. And later on, when we started discussing, we realized that it was not only about the development of these open educational resources, but also to smartly use already open educational resources that are available and to implement them during teaching. So this was, of course, or this implies, of course, some sponsorship for staff, mobility, material resources, different workshops that we have realized, and so on. But to give you basically an idea of how it works, we basically have two programs. There are two programs that are mainly involved. The program at our university at HSRW is here in the Faculty of Communication and Environment. And here you see basically what we have is that our degree program undergraduate programs over this area, and here you have our master programs. And what you can see is that basically there is almost a master for every program except for environment and energy, for infotronic systems. And so what we did was basically to put a master's that was kind of covering everything like an umbrella, right? Or that was the idea, yes? Therefore, that's exactly what I mean. The idea was to have the umbrella of that was having there the masters of environment and energy, then information and communication design, of infotronic systems, e-government, and basically to host there basically the students that were coming from those masters, from those bachelors. That's why So the masters that encompasses that is the information engineering and computer science masters. And the structure of it is a 3-semester masters, when in the first semester you have some core modules, some mandatory courses. The idea is to have specialization tracks. And when we have those specialization tracks is where we can actually put the hosting of those bachelor courses that we have. Right? So those specialization tracks that we are talking about are the track in computer science, the track in environmental analysis, the track of logistics, the track of artificial intelligence, and the track of physical systems. So the idea then with all that is basically to promote multidisciplinarity and to be able to to be able to work together toward solving projects and challenges that we have in the industry, for example. So this is like from the part of our masters. And then Maya will explain basically how the master in hand looks like, and basically how we came to the idea of, okay, what does it make sense to collaborate, and how this collaboration looks like.
Yep. So I first still had an introduction slide about myself, but I was already introduced, so I don't think I have to say much more about that. But if you have questions on any of these topics, then talk to me. Because I've worked on all of them. Yeah, so first a little bit of an introduction. So I come from the Hogeschool Arnhem-Nijmegen, the Han University of Applied Sciences, which is in the Netherlands. We're based in Arnhem and Nijmegen, and we have 14 academies, and yeah, they're on a broad range of topics. So we have physical therapy, we have or I think actually the academia is probably named something like movement and sports, I think. We have electrical engineering, we have all sorts of things, but I'm related to the Academy of IT and Media. I think, yeah, we also have a distinction between the research groups and the teaching, although we do always have some teachers that work in our research group, etc. Well, I'm part of the research group. That's part of the Academy of IT and Media, and our research group is called Data and Knowledge Engineering. We have about, I think, in total we have about 20 researchers. Some of them are teachers, some of them are full-time researchers. We had A computer science bachelor, we have that already, with several tracks: business informatics and management, data solutions development, embedded software development, infrastructure and security management, software development and web development. And we also have a bachelor on communication and multimedia design. And in total we have at least I think we have a lot of students. So at some point we decided we didn't have a master's program in our academy, so we wanted one. And of course, with all the movement that's there around data science, machine learning, and those kind of topics, for a computer science academy, that makes sense. I think we actually had one master years ago, but that was before I was working at the HAN. And there were 3 research groups, not only from our academy, that were interested in creating this master around data science. Those are the research group on lean manufacturing, the research group of bioinformatics, and our research group data and knowledge engineering. So together with these research groups, we have started developing this master's program around data science. And we also involved a lot of companies in our area that we were collaborating already in research with to understand better what were their needs. And for us particularly as well, we are very close to Radboud University in Nijmegen. They have a data science program, so we need to be clear what our differences are. And that's why we are applied data science. So we want to focus more on, well, the application and the problems that you have when dealing with data from the field. So we want realistic projects that solve real business cases, for example, or in the case of bioinformatics, it's a bit more research or strict research. In the case of lean manufacturing, it's more directed to the business goals. Well, me personally, I'm from the technical side, so I'm interested in both. We decided to create a part-time master because we see that there's a lot of interest also from people that have already been working in companies for years and years, but they want to, they're gradually introduced to more data in their work, or they want to handle it more efficiently or do more interesting things with it. And that was also something that we got back from our collaborations, that they had people in their companies that wanted to learn more about data science. And then they start with doing these tutorials online or these online courses, and that's fine. And they learn a lot from that. But then they, typically at some point just don't know how to apply it to their own situations. They're still missing some bits and pieces to actually fully understand what they're working with. And that's, I think, kind of the focus of what we want to bring in our masters. So it's a 2-year master program, part-time. We are expecting students to actually work at a company so that they can also bring their own problems. And we have some criteria that they have to have enough mathematical and programming experience so that we have like a base level. We're starting in September with our first batch of students. We first had to have this entire accreditation process in the Netherlands before we could start, but that's done now. And we've divided it into 4 semesters. The final semester is just a graduation project where they can pick preferably a project in their own company, so that we also can strengthen our relations with all the companies or organizations. And the first 3 semesters are like the content, and we start with more the data exploration focus, where you're just learning how to deal with larger amounts of data and figuring out what these data mean and what you can do with it. In the second semester, we will work on more the machine learning topics, and in the third semester, we will go into the more advanced or specialized topics, but also the deployment, because that is something that we got back a lot as well. The companies don't only need data scientists, and particularly not data scientists that just know how to work with an Excel file or whatever. They want also part data engineers, which fits really well with our bachelor programs, because there is a little bit more attention to data engineering topics as well. Yeah, and besides all the knowledge-based content, we also have some work on research skills and professional skills, but most importantly, we let them work on a lot of real-life project cases coming from our own research groups. The things we're working on, we want to collaborate with that with the students so that they learn as much as possible, but that they're also learning that data is never as nice as you think it is. So yeah, you need to be creative. I think that's yeah, of course. Huh?
Do you prefer questions afterwards?
No, you can ask them now for.
Could you go back, please?
Yes.
I have a question concerning the projects on real life cases.
Yeah.
So you have different skills, let's say, in each semester, like data exploration, predictive modeling, and model deployment. So they are basically consecutive, and one depends on the other, right?
Yeah.
And is this project running over the whole? Is it one project going through 3 semesters, covering 3 semesters?
It's probably depends a little bit on the project. So we'll have several projects per semester that the students can choose from, and they work on that in groups. So for one of the projects we're currently having that's coming from the automotive department. It's about something about how experienced drivers are, how well drivers are driving, and they have a lot of data, and then that one is, for example, divided up in, well, the first part is just exploring these things, and the second part are doing some machine learning things, and the third part is really creating some application that gives some feedback on how persons are driving. So there's really a build-up in that one, but there are also some projects that are a little bit smaller, and then you will have several projects. It's actually one of the things that we're still considering, and that we're probably also going to decide in collaboration with our students, because we're not sure whether it's nice for a student to have like one project 3 semesters long, or that they want to switch to be able to broaden their view actually. So that's actually something we're still searching. But
Milestones after each semester,
yeah.
they could maybe also even change the
Yeah.
change the project.
Yeah.
And how do you assess the students?
So we have some exams that is based on their knowledge, but we also are going to we have these reflection conversations. How do you call it? Well, we're going to have a lot of conversations with our students where they have to build up their portfolio, so they have to and we can ask them about them, and they reflect on themselves, and it's.
Does it mean you have a group of professors interviewing the students?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's kind of intensive as well, but we're starting now with a smaller group, so then it's still doable, and we want to be. We hope that we can keep this up, and maybe also in terms of the.
exactly. So I think from our discussion, that's exactly what. Completely theoretical and only one forward teaching method, and go more towards this project based, because that's when we actually learn. That's when we actually can apply what the knowledge is. And so we have been constantly in discussion and constantly trying to get on some solutions and some strategies on how we can actually manage it. And then if we want to manage it together, how so how we can actually share material, for example. That will be part of our talk later on as well, about that we want to do it also in a very dynamic way, because it's a constant discussion, so to say it.
Hey, again? Yeah. So I don't know how it works in Germany, but in the Netherlands, I think we only have Master of Arts and Master of Science. Maybe a third one, I'm not sure, but there's not that much distinction. And computer science just falls on a Master of Science, and data science falls on the computer science. So, or at least it's more related to the computer science than to the arts, because arts is really like linguistics and the history and those kind of things. So I think there might be a third type of master, but I'm not sure. But there's
Master of Engineering.
yeah, I'm not even sure that we have that.
I think
we
you
do?
do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you do. I'm pretty sure.
Good.
Good. I'm pretty sure you do. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, but I thought that that would also fall in the Master of Sciences, but I'm not really sure how the system works exactly. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's. Yeah, that's definitely the case, because the master is not related to what you did in your bachelor, it's what you do in your master. And if you've proven that you've fulfilled all the outcomes, then no, yeah. But I don't know, the system in the Netherlands, so just from a personal experience, I did a bachelor in linguistics, but we have a highly technical component there, because we do a lot with language and speech technology, which is more at least engineering or technical like, but you still get a Bachelor of Arts. So in that sense, it's more related to where your program, to what faculty your program is related to, than to what content the topic is. But
and I think one of the ideas also to bring this so the plan of project-based learning is to actually be able to build that portfolio, because at the end it really doesn't matter whether you had a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Art, or if you had a Master of Science or you had a Master of Art. At the end, it's your portfolio that's the one that is talking for you. Are you able to do research? Are you able to solve this problem? Are you able to... So that's what it's important at the end. The paper, I personally consider that we have put a lot of weight on the paper, and sometimes... Yeah, sometimes it doesn't really reflect what the people are able to do. They can be, they can have extraordinary grades, but then when you put them to apply the knowledge, maybe it's not the case, or all the way around. And this idea of a project-based learning, it's exactly what it's trying to achieve. So to be able to show what you get, so to say it.
Yeah, and also maybe to elaborate, because you say, well, data science is just a tool. In a sense it is, but it requires a lot of rational and scientific thinking to be able to apply it in a relevant manner. And that's what they learn in the master as well. Yeah. Yeah.
And also the multidisciplinarity in data science at the end.
Yeah.
So, because it covers pretty much every kind of field, and you are not able to solve it without understanding what is happening. So you have to work hand in hand with people that are actually experts on that field, and you're going to learn from that field as well. So that's the whole idea of it.
Yeah. And what's I think interesting from our perspective, we at least want to do a lot of flipped classroom techniques in our education. So we really want also to experience what the students need to learn, and not only to have like a fixed set of lessons with a fixed set of books, and see what they pick up. Yep. Yeah. Well, we're starting in September with the first group. Yeah, if they apply, then they could apply with our masters. Yeah, that's also something that we're still.
Will go through 24. So in this time period, we can also exchange students between our masters and their masters.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Partial, we have to figure out how we do that.
Yeah.
But it's so close, so
Yeah, that's easy.
courses with us, and
definitely.
That would mean in my master data science course in the master, there could be students from your university. Am I right? Next
Possi-
semester?
Possibly. I don't think. Yeah. Well, we have to see what's necessary and what's. Yeah.
We talk about the details, but first of all, we were focusing on the accreditation of their
Yeah.
masters, and now they are of course very busy preparing their lectures. But yes,
Yeah.
we are going through these loops too, in order to see when the best time would be to exchange students, whether
Yeah.
we can make that for winter term already, or whether it's going to be next summer.
Yeah.
And if you accreditation for accreditation, would you need information about my course?
No, because in the end we're the ones that are responsible for the students. So they would also have to give. So it's also, I mean, if they apply with us, then they get our masters. But it's not that your students will get our master. It's not you only exchange because, for example, you have a certain focus in your teaching that's relevant for some of our students.
We will ask
Okay.
you when it comes to that, whether you agree.
Yeah.
So it's not a dual degree masters. The master programs are separated. But we are exchanging teaching material and students.
Yeah.
Why should I teach for others which are not of our university? I would like to, but is this official?
Not yet, but it will be official.
So it is the master here and the master there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a double master.
No, it's not a double master.
Because this requires a lot of management, and they have 60 CP masters, we have 90 CP masters, they charge tuition fees, we don't. So the system
They are part-time, we're full-time.
Yeah.
But then they pay at your university and students come to my course?
why not?
Why? Yeah, why?
Well, I mean, we can take that up later. I mean, that's the framework of the DAD project that accepts this type of framework, but we can talk about that later. Okay?
But that's important.
Yeah, well, I think for now our idea was more or less to also be, to have a broader range of topics that we and projects that we can share, and that's interesting for
think
the students. But yeah,
What made it like very attractive when we started thinking about it was, if we make the focus project based, I will go to wherever the project is being offered. So if I have an offer, I have an offer in HSRW that they are doing a really cool project, and I really want to go there, and that's with Professor Buda, with Professor Becker, or Professor Lud, then I go there, or Professor Hansen, and then I will go there, right? So at the end is, and we have the same case in the Netherlands. So and the thing is that the border is so close that it really.
Yeah, but I just want to know how it would work. So our students, our master.
Like, what do you mean by a course in itself? Like, do you mean on a lecture, or do you mean by taking a module?
You showed my course there. Yes. So would I then have to say yes, what they did there is equivalent to what they would have done in my course?
It's like an exchange. It's like a visiting student.
It's an internship.
No, it's like a Erasmus exchange, the same idea, same level, based on learning agreements. And you can, of course, deny if you don't like it.
I like it. I just want to know what is how whether
Mhm.
they would study there and I have to say it's equivalent or whether somebody
No, the equivalence is just you. If it goes towards the learning agreement, it's basically an agreement between the person that is from both universities. So that's. It will be like a regular exchange, but in itself, like that's really a good plan. But in itself, that's not real. That's not completely the focus that we have, because our focus right now is even more interesting on the part of doing projects together and doing material together, and that's what we're going to actually discuss on the second part of this presentation.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
At this moment, we're having interviews with most of them. So they, apparently, yeah. So I think this week probably the system is open. So then we get our applications, and they have to at least show something about what they did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then if we're having doubts, at this moment I think we're interviewing everybody still, but probably that's also dependent on no. Particularly because we're also focusing on people that might have worked at a company for 20 years and got their bachelor's 20 years ago, and then it's no. Oh. Projects are actually, I think, even 10 weeks or something, but yeah. 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 We still need to have to figure out a lot of practicalities. We just, yeah, we're, like I said, we're starting in September with our first group, so there. I don't know, sorry, those details I don't know.
But I guess that would also be dependent on the amount of students. So we will have a limitation on the amount of students that could actually do that. Yeah. Good. So.
Yeah, for us, still the question is how many applications do we get? So I cannot promise any students or whatever. I cannot promise any students or whatever. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, then that's true. So we have had students that have been telling about masters already for a longer period. So we've already had some interviews. They formally have to still interview their admission now. And then now. Yeah, well, and that's being also arranged by like the organizational part behind, which I don't have any insight in, so I really don't know what the current status is of how many of those people actually applied and how many will still apply. So, how many will still apply? Yeah. Or either way. Either way. Yes. Very nice. Yes. Very nice.
So you already saw an idea of those two master programs, the one that is already running, the other that is going to start. Then we decided that we wanted to work together, right? And then we decided that we wanted to do something, and we wanted to go towards project-based learning, we wanted to get away from this one-way teaching, How does that collaboration look like? So how can we actually feel that? There are a lot of basically questions arise. A lot of basically questions.
Yeah.
Want to continue with that? Or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think a big part of it was how can we share teaching materials, because I mean, we're giving in terms of content quite similar topics. We were having similar design and entirely new masters, so yeah, whatever help we can get, because we're a small team, we need to be helpful. And I think the other way around was a little bit the same.
So for our masters it was also the same, so we have even between the different courses a lot of overlap from the different student gangs of different programs as well. There's still a lot of overlap, so it actually makes sense to be able to share. Actually, it's able to be able to share. You don't have to, but if you want to, it would be really nice. So, another thing was basically it kind of hit the whole Corona story, so we had to move towards online teaching anyways, and move towards online teaching, create and think about, okay, interaction, collaboration, about, okay, how can we actually practice, how can we actually evaluate the students, and so that also became more
there are a lot of tutorials. We either want to make use of them, but we still want to, I mean, we're a university, we want to have the interaction in class and discuss and talk about what you're doing and get creative, and have them prepare a lot of their, well, things it's better, I think it's also nicer for them if they can prepare and get the most out of the collaboration time. Yeah, but in order to share this needs to be findable. We need to know, okay, where is what material, what can I use? We needed to make it accessible, so we have to be able to access metadata or the than the Hochschule, and yeah, preferably we want it also to be reusable, because for example, I think one of the things that we started discussing was also, well, okay, what parts are you going to teach? And if I'm teaching about, let me take it. Feature engineering or whatever. So we want to also be able to take the parts and reuse them in other lectures or other materials, simply because, well, your program is different from mine, and yeah, I don't necessarily want to take
that we saw that it's basically that happens a lot in our programs here, is that as we have so much disciplines, basically you usually want to teach with examples. You usually want to teach showing how this is done in this or that area, and then if you have, for example, an example on energy and an example on ecology, then it will make more sense to actually focus those examples for those disciplines that are very close to that, than if you have, for example, a student that is really just thinking about computer science and computer efficiency, right? So in that way, we can still have topics that relate very close together, but we can kind of detach the examples. And that's how we came to this concept of learning nuggets. And I think we haven't even explained what a learning nugget is. So a learning nugget is basically what we came with that. It is just a piece of information that is actually easy to digest. So it's basically kind of breaking down the knowledge in such as information that you can eat it, and it's going to be fine, right? You're going to digest it, you're going to understand it, and you're fine with it. So they are kind of self-contained as well. So that was the idea, trying to design and maybe also reuse already designed knowledge that has that kind of a structure.
Yeah, and this is also inspired with how these MOOCs work, because they usually have like these short videos of maybe 5 to 10 minutes, or even shorter, I think. And yeah, those are also kind of easy to grasp, self-contained, clear questions to see whether you've understood the content. And I think that's well, at least how it was inspired, and maybe also part of what we want to do in the end. But yeah, like Clein also said in the beginning, we want to be efficient as well. So whatever we can reuse from other parties online or whatever, we don't have to create all the movies ourselves, because there are a lot of them that are really good and that are free to access anyway.
And another important thing is that right now we're talking about learning nuggets, and maybe you're already imagining these mocks about the short videos, but a learning nugget in itself is not limited to a video. It can be a piece of information, it can be an exercise, it can be a text, it can be some explanations of images, a set of slides. So everything that can be contained, and it doesn't have to be a video at all.
So then we had some workshops together, and we came up with at least the minimal amount of information of how we should describe such a nugget so that we can reuse and find it. And I think, well, some of them are quite general, like an ID and a title, maybe some text so that we can relate it to certain topics. But we also wanted to have some information about, okay, how difficult would this content be? What are your prerequisites? Are there any nuggets that you would have to have looked at before you can understand this content? What is the objective of this nugget? And how much time would it, for example, cost? And then, of course, the materials themselves. So, for example, a related video or related reading material, or quiz. Well, whatever we can think of.
Yeah. So also one of the points there is that we wanted to have some kind of, if we are creating this, that means a lot of work. And it's a lot of work to create it, and it's a lot of work then to evaluate. How are we going to manage to if we are going to leave that knowledge to learn at home, right? And at the end, you want to do that because you don't want to, I mean, the idea is not to replace the lecturer. The idea is just to change the way that we give the lecture. So when you go to the lecture, it will be, instead of going through that theory again, you will work together on a problem. But it doesn't make sense if you work on that problem and the student didn't actually go towards the material that they had to go. Therefore, we still have to create some kind of assessment. And there, what was very appealing was this, for example, kind of self-assessment that you can already see on some of the mocks, that could help us with the whole idea as well.
Yeah, and then the idea is that in class you can either use it in a traditional way and use it as a PowerPoint or whatever, or use it as materials beforehand and then discuss in class or whatever, or have an additional exercise in class. So initially we shared this using an Excel.
Don't do it.
I think we gave up actually quite quickly because it wasn't really helping in getting an idea of what was happening or how we can find it. So yeah, it's actually my fault that we started using Obsidian, which is a program I used personally for it's a program that you can use to do some knowledge management or logging or whatever. So I use it a lot for note taking at work, and I introduced it to my colleagues at the Han, and they were actually quite enthusiastic. And then we decided, hey, maybe this would work for the MATS, because it's a very simple MATS for the collaboration. Because the MATS is the Master Applied Data Science. That's how we call it in our team. But it's a very simple, basic idea, which is simply, well, you make notes in a markdown format, so it's interchangeable. You have metadata in a YAML format, so it's interchangeable and findable. And you can link notes together. And well, because there are a lot of relations between all these nuggets and nodes, that's really easy. So at the HAN we've started using this, and well, if we want to exchange it, it's going to be really easy, because I will just pass the directory on to Clein and say, well, here is our content. So I hope that actually helps. But just to explain what we're doing, what you're looking at. So here on the right, you see an example of a nugget. We have some metadata. It's similar to the things that we identified before. We have some actual content. Well, actually, there's not. Normally, you would have some links to material here then as well. So, for example, a video or an exercise. In this case, we're also kind of, that was an idea of our last workshop. We're trying to also map it to an ontology. So that's why there's some additional metadata that you can see in the right as well. That, well, this nugget is about simple linear regression, and we're talking about slope, intercept, parameters. You also have a more complicated version of this nugget, which is about multiple linear regression, where we're advancing the idea of having more variables. They are both children of, or these are children of linear regression or linear model for regression. I think that's the thing that's still a little bit figuring out which levels you need and not, and how you can design your, so we have a per week program. So what we do now is that we create lectures per week where we define our learning objectives of that week. We select which nuggets are relevant. And this is actually not additional reading, but the selected reading, because at the moment we are creating lists of relevant we're kind of now preparing all of our classes. For us, it works really well, and yeah, this is, I think, the point where we're at now, and hope that we can.
Yes.
Links to other nodes, and nodes can be nuggets or can be lectures or can be assignments or whatever. And then in you have this graph view where you can already more nuggets, which makes it easier to also design your classes to see, oh, maybe I want to add this nugget as well. And other than that, there are so many plugins for this program that are so helpful. So, for example, yesterday we were creating nuggets for, I think it was some of the correlation metrics, and then we tag the relevant Python packages as well, and then we can create a node with just an overview of all the Python packages that we use in our database, for example, that we have nuggets for. So that's also sometimes easy to get an overview of if you're missing things or not, or have different views on the same collection of data.
Can you also edit this graph and say, okay, I want to add another learning nugget to my lecture, and then it then automatically adds text to this overview?
That's a good question. Not in the version I'm using, but I know that recently they came up with a variant of Obsidian that's more visual, where you can, I think you can indeed edit the graph, or at least some visualization of the yeah. Yeah. Materials themselves, so they do get exercises or assignments that they need to prepare themselves. But yeah, in this case, the interaction time with the teachers is we don't have, we haven't come that far yet, but I think that's definitely part of the plan to share this more broadly.
Yes.
So
So
about open educational resources,
Yeah,
right?
I hope so.
We are doing together.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's what I wanted to say. We can cross-link, of course,
Yeah,
with your courses and see maybe you monitoring in, but we can share these OERs with you too. That's why we also figured we'd include, in that case, the other program that we have so that we can maybe cross-link the two.
I think that would be really interesting. Just a matter of also figuring out how to make sure that it doesn't get filled with.
I also think that the problems, I mean, they are, last not least, the solution is similar.
Yeah,
But the problem and why it's applied, let's say the biology problem or
Yeah.
whatever, may be different, and that also gives
Yeah.
some cross-cultural experiences and so forth.
definitely.
So it's not only the nugget itself and so forth, it's also sharing this
Yeah.
experience with between Europe and South America in that case.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and on a project basis, it's extremely interesting. Like at the end, one of or the concept or the basis is the project in itself. So exchanging with other universities on a project basis is just, yeah, fundamental.
Yeah, and for us, it's really, I mean, you have other types of problems and research projects that you're working on than we have, and then you can just also have a broader range of topics that you can share with your students, where they can, so that they can also find something that they get motivation from. And
Yeah. Sorry.
yeah.
And you may like you realize while you're doing that there are some problems that you usually just are not aware of while you're just focusing on a certain area. I will just give a simple example, but just by the fact that we are working, like they are working on a Dutch-based language, so to say it, and then we're here where our students come from also different backgrounds, and our lectures are in English, and then we have to share material, then you realize, okay, then the material is actually in a different language, the exercise is in a different language, but you also realize how quickly you can still work with the data.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and this example was, so our master's is going to be fully in English, but I did do some teaching, some cash lectures or workshops in the bachelor, so there my teaching material was in Dutch. And that's the one I shared with Clein, and I didn't even realize. I just...
and but also on a hackathon base, for example, then you have usually the data from the company was on the original language. So how do you actually deal with that as a scientist? Then that kind of thing you have to deal with, and that's something that we will also do later on the workshop, partially.
Yeah.
Do you have any further questions?
Maya, so you have these learning nuggets, and I see them as entities which you can combine to make it a larger context of a lecture or something, or a session, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this problem itself is a kind of NLP problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Let's say
definitely.
you have a large database of all these learning nuggets. How can you generate on the fly a lecture on classification, right? That would be interesting to see whether you can optimize this, right?
Yeah, I think you can actually using actually you don't need to really do the NLP because you have the graph structure, so you can use the graph structure. But yeah, that's the interesting part. But for me, the more interesting part is actually that if I talk to my colleagues, they each have, I mean, we have the same idea about classification in general, but if we want to teach it, my colleague wants to approach it a different way than I do. And that's the benefit of using these nuggets. We can still have the same material, but I can choose to have my ordering, etc. And my colleague can use her way of teaching, and then we both feel comfortable with the material while we're still using the same material. Yeah, that's at least for me a benefit. But maybe
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. I think this is an interesting experiment, kind of knowledge management, to see whether this is applicable in teaching. We don't know.
No.
Will this be accepted by teachers and will it be
Will be
accepted
by the student.
Yeah, both.
see, that is appealing.
We have a little bit of an advantage because the master is new and we as teachers are relatively new in the sense that we're all more or less more researchers than teachers, so we're kind of maybe naive and yeah, more or less. Well, actually, most of my team is not young, but we are flexible.
Then you don't have to apply it entirely. You can
No,
just take
you can
one or
take.
two examples and include it in your
Yes.
maybe every year a bit more and include it into your normal teaching, and you're glad that you found a recent example or that fits well
Yeah.
with the structure you're having, so it doesn't, it's not an all or nothing thing.
As ChatGPT and stuff, that then you can make a new nugget, etc. Yeah.
Does it make sense what I'm going to huge data video collection for primary school teachers?
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Cool.
Like 4-minute videos
Yeah.
explain for a teacher. I'm going to prepare for the next year my classes about photosynthesis. So I put photosynthesis.
That would be nice. To be also one of the questions in practice, how far you can expand it, or do you need to, because we're both now doing the data science related topics, but maybe if
it's the same with look at the MOOCs, right? So we are basically kind of
yeah, so I think we have to distinguish the process that we're developing now for the masters and how we're going to share it in the end, because there are some things that are really specific to our current needs and that are probably not relevant when we want to share it. But I think in general the idea and the content, and at least we are planning to share the nugget.
Yeah. So
Like I
I
said,
think
I will put the folder on Klein's computer. And good luck.
I think whatever that we're sharing and whatever what is shareable is going to be shared. So the idea is that basically why is it not the same as paying for the course or as going to the course? Because that's not the course. That's just the material.
Yeah.
And still
it's
the
mostly
course, and
reusing.
still actually the most important part is what is happening during the course. So how are we tackling the problems to solve? So how are we using this material to learn and then actually solve a problem? And it's the same, for example, or it's very similar to what happens in the MOOCs as well. They are free, but usually their exercises are not for free.
Yeah.
Even though those are automatic corrected exercises, which is not going to be in our case. So, yeah.
and also if you want to have a degree from, let's say, course we were inspired by this, right? Because when you look at this Coursera structure, you have these kinds of learning nuggets, right? As a session, and then you combine the sessions and you have a final assessment for, let's say, the topic, I don't know, regression.
Yeah.
And these then you get a kind of certificate.
Yeah.
And they are thinking now even, or they are establishing micro degrees where you can combine several of these certificates as a kind of micro
Mhm.
degree in machine learning or whatever you're doing. And behind that, there are even universities like Stanford, right? Because Stanford is one of the most, I think, the biggest contributor
Yep.
to Coursera, and it even founded Coursera, I think, by means of, or to support also the training and teaching of Stanford. And if you look, I think he has more than, how many? 3 million subscribers on machine learning in this MOOC? Or 300,000
I
or
don't
so,
know.
it's huge.
It's huge.
And
Yeah.
this is more than the University of Stanford could ever reach in their whole career, right, in the whole history. So this is the new way of teaching, and we have to deal with this, right? And to say this is my material and I'm so important and you have to pay for it, this is an outdated model. This will not survive because you find internationally such great material and training. Maybe for the Hochschule Rhein-Baden, for the certificate, for the work of assessment and yeah, and so on.
Mhm.
Yes, but before you had to pay for textbook in order to have it at home, but it was for free in a building. New is that you have this on a mobile.
Yes.
Yes, it's not the first time that somebody had the idea to explain linear regression.
No.
No,
No, but
That's
that's
of
our
course.
point.
Yeah.
It's not even our material that we're sharing. We're just at this point just making connections between
Yeah.
things that. Are,
But that's
yeah.
the idea. That's not everybody recreates the universe anew, because you can't create the universe anew, as complete as it is.
Yeah. We have another question. Yes.
Yes. So, so that's why I'm still saying, well, I'm not sure in what format we're going to share it exactly, because now it's purely a HAN-based thing, whatever we're experiencing with, and that we are using to put all our materials in. But yeah, we
And
have
also
to,
from our side,
and
it's
from
the
our side,
same.
yeah. So we still have to also see how that overlaps now, and what choices should be made, and especially if we open it up, that would be, in general, I think it will be fine. But if others are able to edit it, then we have to have some control mechanism. I think.
But
Yeah, but for
But-
me personally, it's also the difference between, for example, the lectures that, like I said, well, each teacher can have their own preference in how to teach it. So maybe those are not shared because you can create them for yourself, or you can even create them for each student specifically if they want to have a personalized learning path. But yeah, well, it could be. And about the nuggets that have the relations at least, and that you can use to to find your materials easily. Yeah, but there's also, so we have a lot of discussions about
Some
it. For example,
flexibility.
we had I think we had a general because you also have different levels of nuggets, right? I can talk to you about distance measures in a general and then my coworker, who's from the University of the Radboud University, he explains it in a very mathematical. And then maybe even a third, that's an example or a specific implementation of a distance measure, etc. So these are the types of discussion that are
Yeah, but
that
on that sense also, usually as you have also a person behind that wants to create some kind of scene, some kind of learning path. So at the end, I think we will encounter the case, sorry, where we will have basically different nuggets with different definitions, exactly
Yeah.
because of that. So with
Yeah,
different,
because
with
you
different
can't force like 200 teachers
exactly.
to use the exact same
To have
definition.
an
That would be nice, but we
certain
can't ask them beforehand and be in agreement. Well,
that should be done by by the person that is teaching. So
Yeah.
that the chosen path and the chosen set of nuggets that should be kind of be arranged in advance.
Well, I think
We have
Uh,
a workshop in the afternoon.
Yeah.
We may not be able to
We will.
continue the discussion during the
Yeah, we have to continue with the next
we are running a bit late with
the next presentation. Yes.
say we ask Winfried now to
Yeah.
Winfried, would you be willing to share your knowledge now with us?
Thank you very much. so. So
All different
thank.
contributions or discussions about the topic.
We will then use. The workshop is going to be, we're going to work with two different examples of notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, as a tool to kind of test and show knowledge of these nuggets or the nugget-based learning. So we have two different. Exactly, we have two examples. One example is just a kind of go through tutorial way, and the other example is more like how you would do it on when you want the classroom to be engaged. So we have both of them, and we're going to discuss pros and cons. So right now we would like to welcome Winfried Riesenberg with his presentation in drone and UAV applications for the environment. Yes. Can you help me with that? Winfried is a highly experienced and knowledgeable professional with a background in agricultural engineering from the Wageningen University in the Netherlands. He was working 2 years in Peru in social forestry, and he has spent over 40 years as sustainable energy advisor. Through his career, Winfried has worked in Latin America, East and West Africa, Southeast Asia, and China, bringing his expertise to a variety of regions and communities.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Winfried. We're honored to have you here with us today, and we look forward to learning from you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I was wondering how many of you come from Latin America? Can you show? Okay, yeah, okay, good. Okay, so I don't know, this is not a nugget, but it is just an overview of big drones and how that development goes on. And of course you can ask relevant questions to this. So first, industrial drones. I thought it would be better to take that as a topic because it shows the overview, and then we can go into depth a little bit later. Okay, so the definition is clear. Industrial drones have a size normally. It's a little bit of a industrial means that, okay, it's used for professionals and bigger topics. Okay, so you can have them, the applications in agriculture. Used to be somewhere at a distant place, and then you would go there. Nowadays the work is at home also. So surveillance is another one topic, and it's about firefighting and cargo taking. So we can talk a little bit about the legal aspects of drones here in Europe, and also maybe have your experiences in Latin America about the legal aspects over there. And there's also, of accelerate, or what are ways to take out the obstacles to drone deployment in all these markets. Okay, so I'll go here next. Okay, in agricultural drones, it's good to know that there drone only to remotely sense the position of the crop, the quality of the crop, nutrient levels, etc. So that can be a relatively small drone with different sensors on it, so that you can see what the position is of the crop. And you can have the point drones. And the point spraying drones are just selecting where they spray, and they just spray, for example, on a piece of wheat that they have identified earlier, or that another drone has identified. So the field spray drones are the drones that can be spraying 10 to 100 liters with chemical or biological sprays. It doesn't need to be chemicals, so I want to warn you, you can use also nowadays, you can have very good sprays which contain bacteria to kill certain insects. You can have fungi that are sprayed to beneficial fungi that kill, for example, locusts. You can have all sort of, how you call that, nematodes to kill insects. So there's a very big, 6 meters wide, and then you can spray with a fast speed comparable to with an agricultural tractor. So that is all possible. Then we have the point spray drones, and they just localized spray, and that's a very interesting part, that these this selection of where they spray is done by remote sensing or field data collection. So it's a very interesting thing to avoid spraying in a wide area, and that can be interesting in some occasions. Okay, so this is a simple drone to do the field data collection. So it can be egg. Eagle is one just one brand. You have many of those, and they are relatively light, and they fly over the field, and they take their images in infrared or other spectra, and you can use them to show, for example, the water quality, which I can show over here. So this is then the blue is the wet soils, and the red is the relatively high temperature areas. And you can see, for example, the farm is located over there where it is a little bit more dry. And this is a wet field. So you can see the moisture content, but nowadays you can do that either with remote sensing, with satellite data, but you can also do it with these regular small drones that have these sensors, and it's also on the nutrient level today that you can check the fields. So it's, for example, the N value or the P value, etc. So this is an example of a point spray drone. It just sprays only on a specific area, and there you can save a lot of movement and cost. Okay, this is a 15 liters spray drone. It's a little bit, this is a commercial one, and this is DJI, and you nowadays have plenty of these type of drones from different brands. And the Chinese, they are very good in it, and they experiment a lot with it. In Europe, we have a difficulty that these drones are not allowed, and only, or if they are allowed, it is under very special conditions. So it's more difficult for us in Europe to use these drones, and even drones that are more weight of more than 25 kilograms, they are not allowed as yet. So it's really a troublesome situation that we have in the development of drones because of the legislation. Okay. Okay. You see. Okay. Yeah, okay. Now, this is also interesting. This is just the image to show that the drone, when it sprays, it also has this downwind, the downwash, they call it, and that goes into the depth, into the crop. So if you spray something on this, it will also go deep into the crop because of the air flow in it. Okay, so, sorry. This is another idea that we developed as a company, Drone for Agro. And we thought, okay, well, if you're doing spraying, you should be doing it wide, just like the agricultural tractors that spray on the land. So they are also having wide beams. And why can't we imitate that with drones? So that then we came up with this idea that we could have a 6-meter wide drone. What we did, we designed it like this, and then we ultimately got it like this. So this is flying now, and it's flying not that so-called officially, because different topic, which is also very interesting, which is the commuting. And of course, commuting, it came up with driverless cars. So you had a car that didn't have a driver, and that was in the 50s. And it was beautiful because from a big building, they just did radio control that car, but people thought it was actually driving itself, but it was just remote controlled. Anyhow, the idea at that time was quite good. And today in the megacities, congestion is a problem, and we see that there's also this idea already that we have helicopters that move from one place to the other place, from the one high building to another high building, and it's beautiful to work like that, but it's also very expensive. So it's not a solution for mass transport. So we Uber, you know Uber, the company, they started with all that investment money which they raised because of their ideas. They started to study this 3D person transport. And they thought, okay, let's look at New York as a case study, and also at Sao Paulo, how these transport movements with helicopters are, and what are the benefits and the negative effects of it, and can we do better with today's technology. And so they came with this study to make it more affordable to the masses and more environmentally friendly. So less noise, less pollution, etc. So this study, which was also done with NASA and other companies, really generated much more interest in this idea, and also resulted in the big companies, aircraft companies like Airbus and Boeing, to be part of this future. So a study that really awoke the interest of the bigger companies. drones that can carry people can be found in different sizes, of course. We have thoughts, I mean, the first thoughts were that we have very small drones that you can just sit in, and then as a one person, just like a have the same features to move vertically. So VTOL means vertical takeoff and landing. So to have that sort of characteristics, and just you press the buttons where reduce the fuel consumption by and large. So that is also an interesting idea that came up. And there's currently a range of craft. Electric batteries are used, and there's also other power supplies that you can imagine. For example, there's generator sets that you can have on the drone, and those use fossil fuel, or better said, oil. They are oil based, but the interesting thing is that this oil doesn't need to be produced from the soil, but it can also be produced synthetically. So today there's also that sort of idea. Now the batteries are about 65 watt hours per kilogram, which is a weight that which shows that, okay, but this value is now moving up and up. Every time this moves up to better levels, and for example, there's farther, or they can fly faster. Okay, so an interesting thing is that this volocopter, which is now in a small workshop, he was designing his own electrical motors. And you see videos on the internet still where he's making these things. See a model that was that big that it could take a person. So you see the first videos of this volocopter where there was a guy on a skippy ball with a aluminium structure with about 18 of these small motors, and he was just using his radio control to get it up. So then this whole thing lifted up, and it could move, and it could fly over the pasture. So that started a whole development. So then everybody said, well, this is amazing. So this guy with his group of friends started to further develop this to a volocopter. So nowadays it's a big company. There's interest from Google, etc. So it can really start small with an experiment, and now it moves to reinventing urban mobility, so to say. Okay, this is another one. We have one similar to this one at the university here. Maybe you've seen it. It can carry one person, and it doesn't have this beautiful under part, but it has an aluminium frame, but it's gorgeous, and we're going to test it soon. It has, for example, motors with propellers of about 1.80 meters, so it's huge. Okay. Oh, I don't know. Oh, sorry. Okay, so here this is the first frame that we had. So it's basically now over here. and this was the latest picture that we had, and then we added the motors to it. Now the motors are on it, and it can now fly. So on the other hand, the E-Hang is a Chinese version of it, and it also already flew in many occasions. The E-Hang has also these 8 motors. And why 8 motors? Because if there's one motor fail out, it can also still have the other motor to continue with it. So here, this is the basic idea. Okay, you say where you want to go, and you make the points, and you just, this thing does what it needs to do this automatically. Again, a German invention, and this is also because Germany is a technology country, right? So in Germany, people like to invent things, and they are going really to the depth. We in the Netherlands, we are more traders, so the Han people are also here, so they can maybe agree on that. But we're not that much into inventing stuff, although there's ASML, which is now doing really big in chips manufacturing machines. But anyhow, the Lilium one is another venture that was started in the Munich University. And that one is now also being supported with about 60 million here and another 60 million there. So it's also huge. What they did, they have basically wings, and on those wings they have electric motors, and that pushes the whole thing forward, and the wings can, or the motor parts can tilt, so then it can also fly vertically. It's beautiful to see. If you can have a look at that, they have some videos on the internet. It's beautiful. Okay, the next one is Airbus. So they started first buying a VTOL system that was already there by a small group, and then they also started to imagine how urban mobility would be. For example, using a car and then picking a structure that could fly this car part. Again, Boeing also did do some experiments just to show that they are in. For example, here you can see the aluminium tube things. It's not really to show that that it is very beautiful and really already very far developed, but it's just to show, okay, we can do it. Yeah. Here, this was an ordinary aircraft, and they put some propellers at the bottom part to make it work. The Chinese, they are also doing some beautiful stuff over there, and you see here the 6 propellers, if you can count them well. Okay, this is another one to show, okay, you can have this sort of ordinary planes, and at the other hand still have them fly vertically. Well, this is also a very nice one. I don't know, can we open this website here? I don't know how we can do that. Yeah, but how can I click on it? Is it interactive? No. Okay. Okay. Well, anyhow, we'll leave it for now, but this is also a very tiny one, just a little bit more like a motorbike, and it's flying beautifully. You see it also reacts a little bit like a motorbike, so it has a small steering wheel, some type of thing, and it's really looking nice. Okay, rescue. Again, rescue has 2 separate parts. You can have a rescue system that is only identifying where you have a person that needs to be rescued, and the other one is really actually taking out a person that is injured with a drone and taking the whole person out, so to say, on the stretcher or whatever. This is, for example, example where this stretcher is there with a wounded person, and he can be lifted out of the battlefield and then move to a safe haven. Again, a sort of first testing of a drone, a big drone that can carry a person. Surveillance drones is also a very interesting one. Long distance surveillance and short distance surveillance. And surveillance is also interesting in this sort of thing. Just to show you, this is also an example of a drone. Germany, we had flash floods into some areas, mountainous areas, or let's say hilly areas, and so in that case, what you want is you want to have something that can restore that very quickly. So this is one of the experiments. Hours or longer, because it's tied with a cable, so the energy goes in the cable to the drone. System here under the drone that can allow everybody to access the drone. It's the information, the communication, so that the communication goes from the Wi-Fi thing again to this repeater. In a box, and it could fly out and then do its work. So it's again showing that there's a lot of potential for this. Well, combustion engines, so to say, to keep the flight longer, and then they have only electric motors for the lifting vertically. Okay. Yeah, this is just to say that, okay, we had helicopters and also micro helicopters, and then you have drones. And what you see basically is that the drones, they are different from the helicopter in the way that in the helicopter all the aerodynamics are to be controlled with mechanical systems. They have a tail rotor, they have a pitching system, they all have this sort of elements that make it complicated because it's mechanical. Now a drone, by comparison, has a very simple system. It's just pushing a little bit more on one motor and it goes in the direction that you want to have it. So the drone replaces all these mechanical tools by software. And that's the same what has happened with the cars. We see that in an old-fashioned car, you had a radiator motor that was, a radiator fan that was connected to the motor, and it was all mechanical. But nowadays, it's all separated and it's much more better controlled. So that's the benefit of drones in that sense. Okay, firefighting, same thing. You can have observational drones for firefighting, but in the future, you might also have drones that just do the firefighting like that. So they have a hose, and with the hose, they take that up, and then you can spray whatever you want. This one we also had with a firefighting system, and we've made a beautiful video of it. But of course, that was with a high pressure pump on it, and it was doing quite nicely. So you could just wave this thing like this, or do it like this, just as if you have a hand water cannon. So it worked quite well. And of course, it was not the flow of water that you want to have, but it was a first start. So you could imagine that if you would have this one 10 times or 5 times as big, you could do it even there. You see here, that's the energy cable and the water cable, and here you see the water jet. If, okay. Chinese ones, they have also a bigger one already. Parcel drones, again, simple for packaging, and these packs, they can be either a few kilograms, or you can imagine this to be really big size, like a few 100 kilos, like this. Here, this is a military thing that was imagined with a NATO container on it, and that could be about 150 kilograms. The legal aspects. Yes, the legal aspects are very difficult in the Netherlands and in Europe in general. So the EASA is the European Aviation. They are dealing with this legislation, and of course we have about 27 or even more countries now. Ukraine is not yet with us, but you can imagine that all these countries, they have different requirements and requests, and there's a lot of talk. Now the good thing about EASA is that they say, okay, we're not going to certify, because certification of an aircraft is normally a very time-consuming process, but they are saying now, okay, it should be the industrial quality that makes this thing work or not. So we're going to look at this thing not as an aircraft that goes maybe a few kilometers high or goes over public spaces. No, we're going to ask the producer, where is this thing going to work and under which conditions? And if you say that, then you are seeing that, okay, you have a variety. In one case, you can say, okay, it's just a play tool and it's making pictures and it doesn't weigh more than so much. So why should we bother so much? And on the other hand, you carrying a person, and that is a high risk. And if this thing falls out of the air, it's not only the passenger, but it's also the public around and the objects. So they will make that sort of legislation different based on the operational requirements of this drone. Okay, in the US, they have the federal aviation authorities, and they are doing this a little bit more lenient. In the US, you can also fly drones, or you can fly an aircraft without too much of trouble if you don't fly on public spaces, etc., etc. But there's a lot more possibility of using it. China, they have registration of drones. India, same thing. Africa, it's still open. South America, I mean South Africa, you cannot fly drones. New Zealand and Australia is indeed much more open to this. Markets. Yeah, the markets, you have these companies that do market research, and they always say that it is a market of, let's say, 50 billion in the 10 years to come. It's the same here. All these market projections are really exaggerate and a little bit over the top, but they are also quite substantial. So markets, yes, commercial drones, hobby drones, and military drones, they are really huge, huge, huge. For example, 11 billion almost in the market for, where was this? In Chinese drone market, yeah, okay. Applications, well, okay. What should we do if we want to move into the promotion of drones for good purposes, of course? Then, of course, the applications are not a goal per se, but they can be a means of cost-effective service to be delivered. So don't think of, I can do something with a drone, I have a drone, now what can I do with it? But just go to what you want to do and see if a drone is a suitable solution for that end, yeah? Because there's a lot of people that say, hey, I can now do a drone and it can pull me up with my skis, and then I go skiing and I go to the top of the mountain, and then I ask the drone to go fly back, and then I can ski back. It is a little bit questionable whether that sort of application is really necessary. Also from the environmental aspect, you might not want all this sort of thing. So subventions, there's a funny thing here. In Europe, we say, okay, well, we should be innovative and we should not leave it to the Americans and the Chinese to do their innovations, but we should have it ourselves as well. So we put a lot of money into subventions and innovations. On the other hand, and these programs, they are good. For example, the university also has worked together with a group of people, and amongst that I was also involved, and we did a good work on that. The funny thing is now, when you have something then as a product, well, then the legislation is the next step, and you can't fly with it. For example, this big one that we have, the one-man drone, we cannot fly it officially in Europe because there's no legislation that allows it. So subventions is okay, but the other thing is legislation that is not allowing us. Then, of course, demonstrations are very important. What you see is generally, if you fly a drone, everybody gets scared. But if you drive a truck along the roadside with 30 tons of cargo on it, and you're distant, let's say there's the truck going and it's going on the highway with that type of 80 kilometers per hour speed, you can stay here and you don't feel uncomfortable, right? But on the other hand, if you see a drone flying next to you, which can do much less. I mean, it's not 30 tons, so if it stops quite easily. But you feel anger. You feel, let's say, you're scared for it. So again, demonstrations to make it more easy for people to adapt to it. For example, in agriculture, that's also a very easy one. In agriculture, we have private land. Private land is owned by the farmer. The farmer needs to fly this drone not that high. I mean, it only needs to go 1 meter above the crop, and then it can spray, for example. So there's no need for that type of drones to be not allowed. You can make a cage in software that shows, okay, that the drone cannot fly over that line, for example. That's very easy to do, so there's a lot of possibilities there. Okay, then yeah, we should see the innovations, and we're a little bit lagging behind, but in Dubai, for example, very complex country, to be honest. I'm doing the, yeah, this is really a funny story. I was asked by an Indian guy, he came, he's a software engineer in the Netherlands, and he came to my site and he wanted me to make a drone with him. And I said, okay, fine, but why don't you buy a Chinese drone, because they are cheap and they are readily available, so why don't you do that? No, he wanted to learn from me. Okay, I said, fine, so we're going to do this drone. Then he wants to import this drone in India. Well, I have never written so many documents for this. So he wants to have a finite element analysis of the drone. He wants to have the way how my company operates, and he wants to have this and manuals and operational tools, all this sort of thing. So it's a way of things that is not even described here in this example of India, but it's really tough. there. Okay, but this is just the view that I wanted to give you. Maybe the world will look a little bit more like this in the future, that you have different systems flying around, bigger, smaller, and they can be using all the same sort of communication. And that's the beauty of this thing. It's all software-based systems. It's fragile in one aspect. So if you blur by electromagnetic forces, you make it all go down, then of course the communication cannot be there. But a virtual traffic tower can see all these drones. And these drones can then be also controlled externally in case of a collision course or whatever. So it can enhance safety, and that's what people are also working on. And we said at the first time at about 2014, we already grasped this idea of a virtual traffic tower, and we said, okay, who should be involved in it? And we gave some ideas, but it's still not there. And Rolf has been attaching to that topic as well with a proposal, and again, it was a little bit denied. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Push you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I guess okay. Yeah, this is the end of this thing. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Winfried.
Latin America, tell me. Yes? Yeah. At this moment, the lithium is not yet depleted in the kind of development. So we'll have lithium batteries that are even improved. So at this moment, 330 watt hours per kilogram is the type of level that lithium can have. No, that chemistry, that is changing. It's continuously, and you should go into depth in that, because there's many of these. But the other interesting thing, which is much more interesting, is that we're trying to get away from the Chinese dominance on lithium. So lithium is found, of course, in Latin America, in Bolivia and Chile. And the Americans, they are basically taking that part, and the Chinese take it from their own resources and desert areas. So lithium is not that much in Europe. So the other way of doing it is trying to find a different chemistry. And we now have sodium, sulfur batteries, and they are now still in the sort of development which is having a lot of heat to it, so it can only work with a high temperature. But in the future, and already now, they have been solving a number of these issues that these batteries had, and they can also do it with cold technology, so ambient temperature technology. So if we have that sort of batteries, which can also be, let's say, in the order of 500 to 800 watt hours per kilogram with sodium and sulfur, then we can have really an incredible improvement for this. Yeah. So that is what I hope will happen soon. They're already doing these experiments. They are not commercially available yet, but that will come. The other thing is, of course, that we can use hydrogen and use a fuel cell to turn the hydrogen into electricity. That's another way of doing it. But again, that is relatively complex and also costly. Yeah. Right, right. So anyhow.
So I will suggest that for further questions, we approach then Winfried during the lunch break. And I would like to invite then our Latin. So thank you again. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I would like to invite our Latin American colleague, Carlos Martinez. Carlos is a computer system engineer from the University of El Salvador. He holds a master's of agronomy and crop production from the State University of Nebraska, and he's pursuing his Master of Information Security. So he has vast experience in applied informatics and research publications, and he is right now a professor of the Faculty of Engineering and Architecture at the Catholic University of El Salvador, UNICAES. Thank you, Carlos, for joining us today.
Hello, audio. Okay. Okay. First of all, my name is Carlos Martinez. Carlos, the most common name in Central America. And this is my email as well. And I was required to provide some information about a specific topic. However, for a small and brief introduction for you to enjoy, where is El Salvador located? That is a big question for a small country. This is the smallest country in Latin America itself. Really? Yeah. We are located here beneath Mexico. That's the way everybody understands where El Salvador is. I asked them, do you know Mexico? Yes. Okay, beneath. Yes. We are beneath Mexico. That's the red spot there. We have 6 million people in El Salvador, plus another million in the United States, plus another million in the rest of the world. Okay, this is our university, UNICAES. As you can see, this is how our sky looks almost every day. That's why I'm cold all the time. So this is a tropical country. This is one side of the university. We have a lot of buildings, a lot of infrastructure. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay. And what the university has is some faculties about engineering, health, business, social sciences. This is for the pointer there. No. Social sciences is for laws, teaching, that kind of things. In a postgrad, they have a master degree in business, information security, tourism, and some labs for networking, art design, digital art design, programming. There is a different laboratory for cultivating in vitro plants for reproducing species which are in danger. There is a soils lab that is intended to be working with civil engineering. That is not the chemical part, that is more the physical part. And there are some other units like research and social services, internationalization, you know it very well, and foreign languages. We have courses for English, some French, some Chinese sometimes. Okay, now the question is, what is a blockchain? That is what I was required to talk about. That is a very complicated topic to be explained in a few minutes before lunch. But the main thing is that we all are related to the concept of having one database. And what is a database? It's an environment, a digital environment, to concentrate information in one single place. You can have replicas, yes, but the main concept is centralizing information. So this is the opposite. This is not for centralizing, this is for distributing public information. Not every kind of information. Information you want to make public. And if there is something that has to be secured, it could be encrypted. Yes, that's the way to protect it. But the main reason is to distribute it. So the source of the information is going to send, for example, could be a transaction of currency, could be a smart contract, could be weather information as well. This has to see a lot with weather information because you can publish weather scientific data through the whole world through these kind of systems and make it highly available. What happens if one server fails? When the others still have the information, and if you connect one new server, then the consensus mechanism is going to automatically copy the whole chain to the new server, and that's how it's protected. What if a hacker attacks the server? There is not much problem because he cannot mine the whole blockchain in all the servers. If he starts mining or trying to modify the information in one server, the other servers are going to see by a consensus mechanism that the chain is changing. And then the chain in that server is going to be declared broken. So the server is going to be put down, and eventually the consensus is going to take the longest chain valid in the servers and make a copy, and then reverse the attack. So it is very strong, it is very good for distributing information. And it kind of works like this. There is a series of blocks of information. Those could be, think about them like archives or files contained in the memory. So they have a hash. I will show you what is a hash. They have a timestamp, a nonce value, which represents the validity of the mining process, and the group of transactions could be transactions about money, transactions about who's owning land, who's owning a contract, whatever you want to put here, information about the weather, everything. So I will show you with some demonstrations. I don't want to go too much into theory. What I'm gonna call it block 1, and I will euros to okay Clein is going to pay. Okay, So we have the information, we have the little file, but we have to produce a digital signature. So in Linux, this is the digital signature of that file. A lot of numbers and letters, that is hex code, hexadecimal code. And if I change one single character in the information, you have to pay $100 to him. Or euros, better euros. By now.
That's going to be interesting.
And also real.
Still a poor student.
Okay, for complaining, so now I produced a new signature with the algorithm. This is the name of the algorithm, SHA 256, which, well, there are so many institutions that are seeing how the algorithm performs and make they support the algorithm by technical means. And as you can see, it is it is surprising that the B is starting, but the rest of the chain of the signed value is different. This is BF4, this is BED. One single character was added, a new 0. Now you own him 1,000 euros. And now everything is changed. So how is this applied? I developed a little software. This is just a small tester. And the thing is this. I'm going to create a new block. This is a blockchain framework I have programmed in the back end, not in the front end. This is the front end. This is very easy. And as you can see, this is the Genesis block, the first block that only starts the blockchain. It doesn't mean much than indicate that there is one Genesis only, but it has 4 zeros. So the process of making the blockchain valid and secure is to be repeating the producing of digital signatures to the point of having certain amount of zeros. So that means you are going to have been repeating the same process of generating digital signatures like maybe thousands of times. That sounds time consuming and resource consuming. That is why it is difficult to modify the information, that is difficult for hackers to attack, because it is hard to calculate that. But at the same time, it is so time and resource consuming that if you want to apply this technology, you have to sacrifice your own services. So how much is safe and how much is too exposed? That's a big question. So just to finish this little example, I will create a block. Now you can see the new block has a timestamp, has stored the previous hash. That is why this is a blockchain. The previous hash is chained with the Genesis block. So every block is having the hash of the previous one, like we are inheriting the last name. It's the same. The last name from our father. This is the same thing. So now let's say that Clein again is going to send 1,000 euros tomorrow. And the receiver is going to be Antonio. He looks happy. Okay, we are going to add the transaction, and Clein is going to have a fine because he's unwilling to cooperate. I have added the transactions, and now I am going to mine the block. This is a step-by-step process for you to understand logic. Not the programming details, but the logic in general. Now that I have mined it, I gather all the transaction information, and with all of those data, I generated now the true hash for this block, including the previous hash. All the information is used for this, and you see this number of 4 zeros in there. How many iterations, how many processes it took to generate this valid thousand something, a lot of iterations. That's what you need. And this is some ID. So a block ID says that Clein, I'm sorry, Clein has to pay a lot. So for testing how much this is going to load the system, I have this Ubuntu server here. Sorry? Yeah, this is the server. And this is a console application. Very simple because servers do not have graphical interface because that is a waste of RAM, waste of resources. They just accept information requirements and dispatch the response, but you will not use a server to play video games, for example. So those modules are not available. So that's why this is pretty simple. And this is another tester. This is going to show you, welcome to the blockchain mining tester, and then it says, introduce the complexity levels. You saw I was using 4 zeros. Let's put 4 zeros. Now, how many blocks are we going to compute? Let's say 10 blocks. And here, Java provides us with 5 different algorithms. MD5, which is, this is the version number 2 for IT people. They know that this could be broken kind of easily, but number 2 is a little bit stronger. But if you add more iterations, even though MD5 is kind of weak, it is still possible to secure information. It does not depend on the algorithm, but in the amount of iterations. And there are some other algorithms, some other versions. Let's use the most common, the number 3, SHA 512, which is the number 3. And you can see it takes a little bit. And it gives you some information. It is saying that the time for mining was a little more than 4 seconds. And I run it again with a level of complexity of 6. 10 blocks with the same algorithm. There you have a problem. The compute problem is going to take too long, probably 1 or 2 minutes per each block. And what if you want to add information about weather every day, every 15 minutes? This is going to take too long. It's too time consuming. So that is the main issue. What is the combination between the length of the proof of work string, I mean the amount of zeros, that was too much. 6 is too much. Now this is going to take like 5 to 10 minutes per each block. So we can wait because you're not hungry. No, I will abort it. So this is just to show you that the safest is not always the better. It is too much. But there are other considerations. Let's see if I take the number 2 level of complexity, meaning we are going to mine just 2 zeros. That is too low, too weak, too easy to be broken. But it is fast. Only 2, 10 blocks, my selection, the same algorithm, and there you go. You say, oh, this is pretty efficient. No, this is not that efficient. This is just quick. And it is saying that less than 1 second, milliseconds. This can vary depending on what the server is doing at that time. If the microprocessor is busy in something, but about 300 milliseconds, I said about, is going to take this operation. So I made this application to test combinations for finding efficiency. For example, for weather information could be level of complexity of 3 characters. Let's put 100 blocks with an algorithm that is not that slow, number 2. And here you have the mining process. This is a little bit more efficient and provides some security. So some people do not use blockchain because of this, because they cannot understand very well how hard is going to be the mining, how much they have to spend in servers, how much they have to spend on online clouds like Amazon Web Services and Azure, no, because it's Microsoft. No, just kidding. Could be Oracle, could be Google Cloud. So this seems to be too expensive, and that's why some people say, nah, too complicated, too expensive, let's not use it. But it is possible to create a balance. Not going too low, not going too high, looking for medium points. And there is something else besides of this, the consensus algorithm, which is another topic for making the information democratic. This is not politics. They are saying that the information is democratic because the information goes to one server and it's automatically replicated to the other servers. And if one fails, the others are present to repair the information. Or if you add one new server, then the whole information is going to be restored automatically. And if you have one server here in Germany, but that server becomes slow for some reason, I don't know, then there could be possibly another server in another country that could be less loaded and replace the communication and give you a mixed, not a mixed result, but a mixed response for having the same results. That is the consensus algorithm. So this is basically it. I think I have explained kind of quickly. Hope so. If you have any question, yeah, tell me. The classical approach is that the 51%, the majority wins. The 51% of the servers are going to make the consensus. But there is something else. The longest chain, the longest valid change is always the most important, and it's the one who's going to be replicated to the other ones. Was that it? Yeah, okay, thank you. Someone else? You're hungry? Okay, so let's finish here then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you very much, Carlos, for the interesting talk. So, yeah, you might already notice that we're a little bit late, but so the idea would be then that we have the visit to the session park, and then we will be back here for the next presentation. So we're missing one presentation, the Crunchy Cloud project, and then we're going to have the workshop. So we would like to meet here again at 2:15. For the presentations then of the Crunchy Cloud project of Jan Sontag, Hasan Subari, and Clein Sarmiento, and then the workshop of the learning nuggets of Maya and me. Yep.
And the rest whoever would like to join the workshop will be back then at 2:15, right?
Okay.